This is Becky, and I'm here with Deanna again. And we are not quite super moms. And we hope that you have enjoyed the podcast so far. And we have a couple of podcasts that we're recording and getting ready for you all. But we really hope that you'll go like the page on Facebook, share it with your friends, shoot us an email, let us know what you think, add some comments. We'd love to hear from you. And we hope that God is using this to be a blessing and encouragement to you. But today we just really had this thought, because the title of our podcast is Not Quite Super Moms. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you, Deanna, but we are not super moms. No. I mean, bottom line, we just do not have it together most of the time. And we're not here to tell you that we do, we're not pretending behind this computer screen or wherever you picture us. We're actually in a playroom, but that's a long story. But anyway, we do not have it together. And so our thought for today, we were talking about what the perfect mom looks like. And Deanna was saying that her mom kind of just seems to be like the example of perfection when she imagines herself. So tell us about your mom. What was she like when you were growing up?
Yeah, well, okay, so when we were growing up, she stayed at home with us when we were little, and I have an older brother and a younger sister, but we're pretty close in age. And so I just always remember in my mind her being so generous, She always did things for us. We were really her focus, as much as I can remember. Yeah. We were really everything she thought about. And if we would go to the store, she would always get us a little something. Or if she went somewhere on her own, she would bring us back a little treat and everything. And I don't ever really remember her doing things for herself. Right. We were always her focus. And so now as an adult, I kind of have had to learn that I'm different in a way. Right. I love my kids, don't get me wrong, but I'm not always bringing them treats. I don't know if they would say, "Oh, my mom's the most generous."
We have different strengths and different, things that your kids will look back on you someday and say, "Oh, she was this," and mm-hmm. I mean, you all don't see Deanna on a regular basis, but when I see her, I literally think of the Mary Poppins mom, because one of the first things I remember her telling me when I met her, which was several years ago now, was that she played this game with her kids on her phone, and it was like this, what was that game? With that
Heads Up.
Heads Up! Yeah. And you were telling me about that game, and I was like, she plays games with her kids, man. She is like Mary Poppins, but also I've seen her in action when it comes to teaching or, at church and stuff. And she's kind of I feel like you'd be like the fun mom that I compare myself to. but yeah. And I mean, my mom was amazing too. She just always, was home when we were home. She kind of made it her goal as a mom. That was the one thing she was going to sacrifice, was that it didn't matter what our financial situation was. If we were home, she wanted to be home with us. Mm-hmm. And I remember she had to quit jobs sometimes because if we were sick and they wouldn't give her the time off, she was not going to send us to a babysitter or somebody else. She was going to be home with us, and it didn't matter what her job said or whatever. And that was just a sacrifice that she made all the time. And I still now think back, and I do want to be like that, as a mom, just be with my kids when I can. But even still, when I picture perfection as a mom, I think of the 50s Leave It to Beaver housewife who is baking cookies, and yes. Deanna said earlier, before we were recording, she was talking about ironing shirts for our husbands or whatever. I think my husband would probably pass out if he came home and I had ironed his shirts. Yeah.
My mom literally, she puts all his shirts into a basket and then irons all the shirts and then hangs them up. Yeah, for him.
Oh my soul. Yeah. You are amazing, Mrs. Schultz.
Right?
You're amazing.
Go, Mom.
But I mean, we just compare ourselves a lot to either other moms, like I was saying, I just see this this Mary Poppins mom sitting next to me, but also, just our own moms and the standard that they set. It's hard because we do see things, and we see on Facebook, moms with all their children sitting and doing homework, and it's an Instagram filtered picture that just looks like perfection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just don't have that in my house. In fact, I do really, really well for us to all sit down at the table and eat dinner together. Like, that is probably my goal every single month, because it hardly ever happens. We're just like, grab dinner here, grab dinner there, go do whatever you were doing before, and just, that sounds horrible.
No,
probably,
we do that too, but
probably a whole bunch of moms are judging me right now.
But like, Mark doesn't get home till around 7 o'clock. There's no way we're gonna eat dinner at 7.
As a family.
Right, as a family every night. So we're totally like that. We have dinner, I fix something for the kids, and I eat something different for me, and then Mark eats when he gets home.
Right.
But,
it just is what it is.
Yeah, we conversate in different ways.
Yeah.
It's not around the table, but we try to make it work in other ways.
Tucking them in or whatever we're doing. So, the thing is, we just struggle. But beyond all of the superficial things, where we are not the example of perfection that we kind of have built up in our minds. But also, we struggle with things as moms getting it right. Sometimes I discipline out of embarrassment about my kids' behavior instead of actually disciplining them for the purpose of pointing them to Jesus. Or I might yell definitely more than I want to. Monday we're on spring break here in Mississippi, and it's been like winter break really, because it's been freezing cold, and the first couple days of spring break were rainy and yucky, and we just my kids were climbing the walls, honestly. And Monday was a tough day, and I had our mom's life group coming over on Monday night, so I was like, okay, everybody's gonna clean, and it didn't happen like that at all. They were fighting over who was gonna clean what. That's how bad it was on Monday. And I definitely yelled more than I normally do, and I remember thinking on Monday, God, why am I struggling so bad to be a good mom right now? But I think it's just because our routines are all jumbled, and nobody's doing what they normally do on a Monday.
Right.
And
I actually caught myself because normally we're at school, I'm a teacher, and so I'm at school, the kids are at school, and Gideon, who's 5, talks nonstop, does not be quiet, okay? And so I found myself at one point, he was like, Mom, and I'm like, what? I said it just like that, and he was like, I love you. So sweet. And then I felt so bad, but that was...
Riley does the same thing. Yeah. Riley does the same thing. We just, Riley's about to be 5. In fact, her birthday is on Monday. And she's the same way. Just never stops talking. Right. Always has something to tell me or to say or ask.
Yeah. My mom would always say, cherish these moments with them, because they'll be gone, and it's really hard to remember.
That is the worst.
In this moment, to cherish it, cherish that little voice who's constantly
I'm
saying
going to record you so I don't have to cherish this tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I, just thinking about perfection and imperfection and how we're not super moms, this verse came to mind that said, in 2 Corinthians 12:9, and I read the Amplified Version because it had a lot of extra thoughts that went with it. It said, my grace is sufficient for you, for my loving kindness, my mercy are more than enough, always available, regardless of the situation. And the thing is, we may struggle with our kids talking too much, or, having a rough day where we're, the kids are climbing the walls and we're yelling or whatever it might be. But you might be struggling with other things. You might be struggling with a kid who's chronically sick, or maybe you're struggling with a kid who's struggling in school, or who is being bullied or is the bully, or maybe they're struggling with math, or reading or whatever it might be. I feel like we can all relate, but this verse kind of covers it all and says, whatever it is that you're struggling with, he says, my power is being perfected and is completed and shows itself most effectively in our weaknesses. And I love that. As a mom, I'm not going to be perfect and I'm not going to have it all together. And my weaknesses are going to show a lot, especially in my own mind. We were talking about that too. My kids might not know that I don't have it together, but I know when I'm struggling and I'm having a rough day.
Yeah.
And as a mom, I feel like we compare ourselves to everybody else's highlight reel. And for us, the day-to-day grind, it's a struggle. But his promise is true. He says that his power in us is being perfected and being completed in spite of our weaknesses and through our weaknesses. And I think there's an implied command kind of, or like an implied direction in that. And that is asking for his strength, because we often try to just do things in our own strength. We're like, we've got this, but I think the implied thought there is that we do need to just kind of yield it and give it over to him and say, I don't have this right now, so I really need your strength today. Because we're not going to get it right, but he is. And we can't be perfect moms. We can't be perfect friends. We can't be perfect daughters or sisters or wives. All of the different hats. I mean, moms, we wear a ton of hats,
right?
And we can't be perfect in any of those roles without Jesus. But it isn't an excuse, because he actually steps in and becomes strong through us, for us, in our weaknesses. And I had a recent revelation. I was just thinking about my kids and where are they going spiritually, and I realized that a lot of times I don't admit to them that I was wrong, and Deanna, you were saying that your mom always apologized. You just remember her always apologizing. And I feel like as a mom, I just don't apologize enough, when I do get it wrong, or at least admit that I don't have it all together. I think we inadvertently just want our kids to think that we do have it all together, so that they'll obey us, so that they'll trust us, so that they'll respect us and look up to us. But like you were saying, when your mom apologized to you, you remember feeling, what did you say? You just felt more connected.
Yeah, I definitely felt it. Well, it kind of took me aback sometimes that she would even say that, because as a kid, you look to your parent and you think they know everything, and she probably felt all the time that she wasn't doing everything right. But for her to get down on our level like that and to admit, I was wrong, or I shouldn't have done this, or we'll get through this together, it was important. And it showed me that she could be vulnerable and not just this person who was always strict or had all these rules. Like she loved me, and she was a mom, she was a person, so just she was allowed to make mistakes.
Exactly. And not just an authoritarian person in your life, but she was actually human. And I realized recently that if my kids think I have it all together all the time, and that in their minds that I don't need Jesus, then how will they ever see their own weaknesses or their own need for Christ? Or on the flip side, they could just, compare themselves to what they perceive as my perfection or my have it all togetherness, and then not feel like they can come to Christ and ask him for help. And ultimately that leads to salvation, because we can't get ourselves to heaven. We are imperfect. We need Christ. We need his covering. And I feel like if the kids see that, if our kids see that we need Christ, then they'll see that they need him too. If we can't do it, they definitely can't do it. Not that our kids are necessarily worse. I'm sure my kids rival me and my brother when it comes to all the arguing and bickering. My brother and I used to argue all the time. But I tell my kids all the time now that my brother and I are almost best friends now. So eventually they'll be friends too. They just don't believe me. In fact, every single time I say that, they're like, Mom, I'm never going to be her best friend, or I'm never going to live near her or anything. But I always tell them that there's proof. Uncle Drew and I are good friends now.
Well, to me, like, going back a little bit, like, it's easier to me to be like for my kid to not see me as perfect, right? Like, They ask me all the time really hard questions about what, like, why is there fog? What is fog? I mean, that was kind of easier for me to explain, but there are some things that they ask me and I have no idea. And a lot of times I'll either say, like, ask your dad, or we'll have to Google it or something. But to me, it's so much easier to just say, I don't know. I don't have the answers. Like, we need to pray about it. Or, to not be in control in a way is easier. And just to say, let's just give it to God. Because I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know everything. And I alone can't do it. So to show our kids that and model that, like, look at that, my mom doesn't even know what to do, but she's gonna pray about it, and then be able to see that it does work out, and he puts his hand on the situation, and he works a miracle, and then it's really it's like a testimony, for the kids to be able to say, I saw that in my childhood,
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the walls of Jericho were not going to fall on their own, and the people, God told the people to walk around it 7 times, and then 7 times again on the last day. But the truth is, they couldn't have fallen on their own, and it became a testimony that they didn't have the strength in and of themselves, but they obeyed God and they did what He said, and He came through in their weakness. And that's exactly the same. Our kids are just like Jericho sometimes, and the walls around their hearts are just like Jericho sometimes, and we are weak in and of ourselves to fix those things that they struggle with, and even in ourselves, our own weaknesses and the things we struggle with, we're powerless in and of ourselves to fix ourselves, but He is that strength, and He is that help and comfort when we need it, and He just really steps in, and when it's all said and done, like you said, we can point back and say, we didn't do that. When our kids are raised and they're older and they're living for God and doing what more than we ever dreamed that they would do, we'll look back and say, that wasn't us. That has nothing to do with our parenting, but it's all because of Him, and because we pointed our kids to Him. So anyway, we hope that this has been an encouragement to you. We are all with you in this journey. We are not super moms. We do not have it together, but we do have a super God. And He is our strength. He's our rock. And He's going to help us, especially on those days where we're really struggling. Yeah. So we hope that this has been an encouragement to you. If you enjoyed it, please share with your friends. Please take the time to like the podcast, like the Facebook page, tell your friends locally about it, and we'd love to hear back what you think and your thoughts. Any extra additional comments, we'd love to hear it. Please share and comment below. Bye, guys.
Bye.